Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody, how you doing? This is Stan Gibson with Stan Gibson Speaks, and welcome to episode number 9 of the Inspiration Podcast. Unlike traditional leadership podcasts that showcase the polished stories, this leadership lab, it talks about the messy middle where real growth happens. We talk about, having guests on who aren't afraid to expose the genuine challenges that they've had and the imposter syndrome and the resilience and courage that it took to go ahead and lead. So I tell you what, strap it on. Let's have some fun and let's get this party started. From time to time, I do solo cast and I just want to talk to you. My producer, she had requested that, probably every third, fourth, fifth episode, take one of your newsletters and, bring some of the articles out, some of the things that you post about. It's crazy. I've been creating a newsletter now for about 2 to 3 years, and they say that if you have about 10 to 15% of the people that open it, that's pretty successful. For whatever reason, I've had 45 to 50% open rate. It's almost put a little pressure on me because I know that the more people that subscribe, that number may go down a little bit, but I'm obviously doing something right. And the thing about the format is, it's a 2 to 3 minute read. So I try to make it very simple because I know that everybody's emails, they just get bombarded and you have to unsubscribe every so often to a ton of emails. And I don't want to be that guy. I want to be something that you pick up, you say, I haven't seen that before. That is pretty cool. So I've got 2 different formats. One of the formats is called the 1, 2, 3, and it's where I've got one quote, I've got 2 nuggets of well-being habits, and I've got 3 really odd stories that would make great dinner conversation, just something that you're not going to pick up on a headline elsewhere. The other format that I come out with in the opposite week is called 3 leadership keys to live by. And so that's got a really good article on well-being. It's got another article on something I'm listening to, I'm reading, some documentary, some YouTube clips, something that I just think will really motivate my listeners or my readers for leadership. And then the third piece is going to be a leadership nugget, something that, I'm experienced either as a keynote speaker or as an executive coach or within my master classes that I have, just something that is in there that I just think that it's going to resonate with people that they're currently going through. And they say, wow, glad I read this. That's something that speaks to me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about one of the newsletters. And I think this one's a lot of fun. This one is going to come out of the 3 leadership keys. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is a well-being tip. And it's going to talk about, hey, we all want to lose weight. We all want to gain muscle. I'm going to talk to you today about that smoothie, that pre-workout smoothie, that post-workout smoothie. I want to talk to you just a little bit about that. And sometimes people wonder, well, how much protein should I really be getting? And it really differs. It differs depending on your age, your weight, what are your goals? Are you a workout fanatic? Are you just kind of, just wanting more protein in your diet? And I'm really telling more and more of my clients, I think, having a protein, high protein, and when I say carbs, I'm talking about fruits and vegetables. Having a high protein fruits and veggie and putting some fat in their diet, I think that's really, really probably close to a Mediterranean diet. But that's probably one of the best, most effective ways, I think, to eat and be healthy is by incorporating protein into your diet. But what about when you're working out? So one of the things about a protein smoothie, it's a balance of protein and carbs, and it gives you a steady source of energy that just really brings some intensity to your workout. And that workout smoothie, it helps kind of protect the muscles and from tearing down, and it just gives you a lot of energy. They say that probably before a workout to have one of these smoothies, probably 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours before. For me, I've got 2 to 3 days out of the week where I've got a pretty early workout class. I tend to, it's called a boot camp, and it's about 6 in the morning. So for me to get up at around 5 o'clock or 4:30 to have a smoothie probably doesn't make sense. but I do have a post-workout smoothie. And I'm probably going to start to incorporate more pre, even if it's only 30 minutes before, see if I've had time to digest it well enough to where it doesn't, start to make for an uncomfortable workout. Because if you want to keep the muscle that you're building in either a boot camp or a weightlifting or you're trying to build muscle, it takes protein. It takes protein. You say, well, how much? Again, it depends. It depends on your size. It depends on your goals. It depends on your weight. Typically, if you're, I'll just throw some numbers out. Typically, if you're about 150 pounds, you're looking probably at about 65 grams of protein. If you're really intense, you work out a lot, then you're going to bump that up. For that same size person of about 150 pounds. Then all of a sudden, you're looking somewhere between 80 and 140, and that's a big swing. 80 to 140. But anyway, it's just crucial to be getting protein in your body, especially if you're concerned about your physical fitness, you're working out a lot, you're trying to add muscle. And I'll tell you what, the older you get, muscle, osteoporosis, I mean, these things are real. And so getting enough protein, enough muscle is probably way more critical, I believe, than going after zone 4, zone 5 type workouts where you're trying to build up a lot of cardio, which burns muscle actually. So be mindful of the protein shakes that you have for a pre-workout. And I would also say get that post-workout smoothie. That's what I go for. And, typically by the time I get home from the gym, I'm automatically throwing up a smoothie. And it's gonna have probably 35 to 40 grams of protein in it. I'm gonna add more with some peanut butter. I'm trying to get, 50 grams just right off the bat. And I'm gonna have another one probably in the middle of the afternoon, and I'm trying to get up, closer to 80 to 100 without even including my meals and everything else I do. I'm a bigger guy, so, I'm gonna need at least 150 to 200 grams if I'm trying to build muscle or at least trying to keep and maintain as active as I am. So be thinking a lot about, getting that necessary protein and using it in the way of a shake, pre, post if you can. And the other thing I would tell you too is, shakes are a great way to get those carbs. Again, I'm a big believer in PCF. That's protein, carbs, and fat, not pizza, Coke and fries, but, PCF to get that protein, but to get those carbs. How much carbs do you need? How much fruits and veggies do you need? Fruits and veggies, there's a saying that a nutritionist gave my wife in at one time. She said, 5 is fine, 9 is divine. 5 is fine, 9 is divine. So that's 5 cups or 9 cups, so trying to get 5 to 9. Well, getting that much fruit and veggies during the day is incredibly hard. So to put them into a smoothie is probably the best thing to do. And you might say, well, yeah, isn't there a lot of sugar in fruit? And there is. But I will tell you what, adding fruit to smoothies, it does bump up your sugar intake. I'll give you that, because it contains fructose. But how much depends on the type of fruit. For example, a banana is going to have, 14 grams. That's where a cup of strawberries, 7. And bananas are going to be on the high end, always going to be on the high end. But what they're gonna have is, it's not like the sugars that you find in a candy bar. Fruit sugar, yeah, comes with fiber, with vitamins, with antioxidants, which slows digestion and quite honestly, it blunts the sugar spike. Now, if you have too much of fruit in there, it will spike you. So be careful. Moderate is best. But, that's a great way. I will tell you a big staple for mine is I put, some type of coconut water. I will then do, some kind of spinach leaves. I always put an apple in there because it sweetens it up, but then I'll put the carrots and I'll put, any of the other veggies that I've got. And I'll tell you what, it's just amazing. And I have a bullet that I use, bullet type. It's a type of a blender that is just easy to just boom, get it done. It's a Ninja. I can promote many different models, but again, getting some fruits, 5 to 9, 5 to 9. So that's about a midday for me, drink, along with bookending, my protein. So something to think about. Get Don't be afraid to blend. Don't be afraid to use that smoothie to get what you need because it's going to be easier than sitting there and downing, 10 peanut butter sandwiches or something like that. So that's the well-being tip for the day. That's the well-being tip. hey, let's have some fun. I want to get into something that is really, this is, I got so many clicks on this newsletter because I think the most I ever got, quite honestly, because the title of it was, Are You Playing It Safe? What My 91-year-old mother taught me last week. So I'd happened to be in the Midwest and with my mom. She's 91. About a year and a half ago, we were blessed to find an assisted living place that was awesome, just awesome. She still can keep her house, but she can go to this assisted living Monday through Friday. And at the time, she and my stepfather, Jack, who unfortunately passed away a few months after, but they went to this assisted living center, and it's a wonderful place. But I'll tell you what, anytime you go into a new place like this, it's like transferring your parents transferring, from one city to the next when you're in junior high. You start to look around, and all the cool kids are sitting over at one table, and even though there's not a nameplate on every chair, to not go sit there. And if you do, you're going to be told that's not for you. This is where we sit. We've kind of got our cool group, and so my mom's always been a natural leader. She's always been a wonderful leader. She's a wonderful person. She has so many unbelievable talents. And so, she wasn't part of the cool kids club. She wasn't able to sit over there. I mean, I think she tried one time, and I think, hey, whoop, 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 this is reserved. And sounds kind of childish, but it's kind of how we all operate in life. We get these groups and these cliques, and this is who we're comfortable with. And we just don't accept people quite as easy. So after a few months of this, my mom, she's unbelievably talented. And over in the corner was a piano, and it hadn't been played for years. In fact, it was kind of butted up to the wall so that, you could tell that it was almost in the way. And she went over and they scooted it out. And one day she went over, and my mom is one of the most unbelievable pianists that there is. And what's crazy about it is she can't read music. She's tried. She's worked with, certain, piano teachers, and they tried. It just, as soon as they leave the room, she'll just be, pounding all over the keyboard, probably putting them to shame. But she got this gift when she was 6 years old, and she was able to sit down, and she didn't, she grew up on a farm. They didn't have much, but they did have a piano over in the corner, and she could just pick up in her mind. Became her magic trick. I mean, it's something that she could hear something and put the chords together and just start playing it. And now she's played all over for probably 50, 60 years. She just, if anybody's got a wedding, if anybody's got a party, if anybody's got anything where they need a pianist, they call my mom. So she spots this piano over in the corner, and she goes over and sits down. And this is at lunchtime. And, I think they've got their routine, but she starts banging out on the piano. She starts banging out tunes, and not just any tune. She starts banging out all of the hymns that go to each of the branches of the services. So, like the Navy, the Army, the Marines, the Air Force. And of course, people out there at the assisted living all served in probably one of them. And so, all of a sudden, she's hitting on the old heartstrings here. And, some people are standing up, and some people are, they're getting all emotional. And the one song that is just the crowd pleaser is Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And in fact, I'll put this newsletter in my show notes because I actually put a clip that I put in the newsletter of my mom playing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And the cool thing about her playing and taking that step to not play it safe is that when she did this and got up and did it, and we'll take steps like this that are uncomfortable. You don't know how they're going to turn out. You have no idea. But then all of a sudden, another lady at one of the other tables said, hey, I play the clarinet, but I can't read music either. I play by ear. Mom said, well, come on, let's start a band. And then one of the ladies from the cool kids table said, I'm a professional whistler. Now, I didn't even know that's a thing, but she's a professional whistler. So as I played this little clip in my newsletter, you can not only hear my mom banging out the ivories, but you can also hear a lady over on the clarinet. And then you can hear a little whistling going on in the background. So all of a sudden, they had a band. I mean, they had gigs. They perform every Tuesdays and Fridays, and people look forward to it. Now my mom gets to sit at, any table she darn well pleases because you know what? She had the courage to get up and do something. And she knew her magic trick. If you've got a magic trick, you've got one. For me, my magic trick, and I work with a lot of clients. When I do executive coaching, I work with them on, defining their magic trick. What is it that just comes so natural to you that, you do it and you think everybody else does it. And they look at you like, wow, you're Houdini. You have this magic trick. And it's nothing to you, but it's everything to them. And for me, it's quite simple. For me, it's connecting dots and connecting people. I always say I just have this ability to meet a lot of really interesting and cool people in the world. And a big piece of my coaching and my consulting is introducing my clients to other people that I think can accelerate their career, their initiative, or whatever. I just have that ability and that Rolodex. If you even know what a Rolodex is, you'd have to, some people it's contact list, in your phone. But it's having that contact list that's just comes natural for me and helping people accelerate through my relationships in life. So what's your magic trick? What is it you do that's so effortless that everybody else thinks it's magic and you just say, no, it's just what I do. I want you to think a little bit about that. I want you to think about your magic trick. And want you to think about, is there anything that's holding you back? Anything that is making you play it safe? And if there's anything that's making you play it safe, how do you use that magic trick? How does that magic trick come out to where you can say, you know what? Here's what I do. It's so natural to me, but there's something I've been putting off doing. There's something that makes me a little bit nervous. And do you have the ability to use that magic trick? You know, I always tell clients growth lies in the land of uncertainty. Growth lies in the land of uncertainty. You never know how anything's going to turn out. You just don't. That's where the real growth lies. Growth lies in the land of uncertainty. And sometimes using that magic trick is exactly what is effortless for you, but allows you to go ahead and to not play it safe, to find that extra, that cool kids table that you've always wanted to sit at. It doesn't have to be a cool kids table. I want you to be authentic. I don't want you to think you have to, that you're not as good as somebody else, but it just might be that initiative or that thing that you just haven't done. But again, you have it within you. So think a little bit about that. That's going to be a takeaway for today. I want you to really kind of think about what is your magic trick. And in fact, when I do facilitation for workshops, it's one of the icebreakers I use. I ask everybody, what's your magic trick? And, they think about it for a little bit and then they're able to go ahead and communicate. And once they communicate it, what are we going to do with it? How does it propel you during the week? So anyway, that's something to consider. And I really do. I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you on what's your magic trick. And I want to challenge you on not playing it safe. Not playing it safe. And that's scary. But remember, growth lies in the land of uncertainty. So you've got this. You've absolutely got this. The final thing that I'll just talk about real quickly, and this was interesting because this was a leadership nugget that I put in the newsletter, was I titled it Truth Bombs Save Time. Truth bombs save time. I'm working with the artificial intelligence group, and we're working on what's called human-centric leadership, where we go into organizations and we try to introduce artificial intelligence and some proprietary software where we come in and can easily evaluate each and every position in the company, not so that they can terminate people, so that they can free up time. Free up time so that people have time to work on higher value initiatives. And so as we're launching this, and this hasn't been that long ago, I called on a company that I thought might have some interest. And I told them up front, I said, I'm not here to pitch you. I think it's something that we just want to run by you and kind of get your 2 cents. And we did that. And I think we came across a little salesy because, within about a week and a half, they called back and, they said that they weren't interested, but they said something more interesting than that. They put a truth bomb on us and they reached back out and they said, we're not interested at this time. But he did us a favor because he dropped this truth bomb on us. He said, I'm sorry if this sounds blunt. However, I'd pay good money for this feedback. He said, "I'm sorry if this is blunt. However, I'd pay good money for this feedback." And he told us a little bit about, what wasn't resonating with him. And again, it was just with him. It's a wonderful product, but he was able to be honest with us. He was able to not just say the safe thing and say, "You know what, we're not interested in this tank." He was able to say, "This might be blunt, but I would pay good money for it." And I thought a little bit about that. In one of my other episodes, I talked about being kind versus being nice. Nice is really, we're just trying to not hurt somebody's feelings. But when you're being kind, then you're being truthful. You're being direct. You're telling somebody something that they probably need to hear. And again, when I'm put in those situations, oftentimes I always start off with saying, "I'm going to speak with some truth and love here." And that's a natural way for me to enter into a difficult conversation. I'm going to speak with some truth and love here because I do want to give truth, but I always come at it from the perspective of love. I don't come at it with any kind of way to tear you down or to make you feel bad. And again, it can land on you any way you like. You can say that makes sense, or I don't agree with it, and that's fine. It does not invalidate my comment, but I come at you with truth and love. And again, it was a truth bomb. It was being kind versus nice. And we need to work very hard in society to at being kind. We need to be direct. Again, it isn't what you say, it's how you say it. It isn't what you say, it's how you say it. So, as you go throughout this week, think about opportunities where maybe it's the safe route to go ahead and just say not interested or just, kind of ignore kind of the elephant, in the room. And think about, can I get uncomfortable here for just a second and put a truth bomb out here and do it in a way that, you know, is kind. Another thing that I often use is I will say, "Hey, here's how this landed on me." That simple phrase right there. "Hey, here's how this landed on me." Because they can't argue how it landed on me. It's just how it landed on me. And then I can go into, the situation itself, what I might change or what I might think about changing. Here's how it landed on me. So think about what you're comfortable with. Think a little bit about how you might phrase a difficult conversation. Again, not what you say, but how you say it. So think about truth bombs, and those are such an effective way of being authentic, of helping people, and helping them see what they're not seeing, helping them see the elephant in the room. So that's a wrap up on today's episode number 9. I hope you enjoyed it. Each one of my newsletters, I always end it by say, "I can't be all I can be unless you become all that you can be. I can't be all that I can be unless you become all that you can be." That was something that Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, they changed South Africa, the mindset. I mean, during apartheid, they changed it by challenging the people that were being abused by saying, "We can't help you until you help yourselves, but we can't be all we can be until you become all you can be." And I first saw this on a documentary. There was a sports documentary on Netflix, and it was featuring Doc Rivers, who was the head coach of the Boston Celtics. And Doc Rivers had 5 players on the team that were NBA All-Stars, and there's only one basketball. And he had 5 NBA ball players. And he had to figure out how they're gonna play together because they weren't playing together as a team. They were probably mediocre, yet they had probably the best talent. Not probably, they did have the best talent in the league. And so there's another version of "I can't be all I can be unless you become all that you can be." And it's "I am because we are. I am because we are." And once he was able to get them to open up and accept this concept of "I am because we are," they start thinking less about themselves and they start thinking more about, what if I made the other guys better? What if I helped them become their best? And eventually, it will put a ring on my finger, a championship ring. It's very important. And I'll tell you what, I talk a lot in my keynotes, in my coaching, in everything about when leaders become coaches, employees become leaders. When leaders become coaches, employees become leaders. So think about this from a coaching perspective. No matter what role you've got, you're always a coach. And when you coach up everybody else around you, think about how much better you become. Think about how much better you become. So anyway, that's what I always wrap it up with. I always wrap it up with this, and it's called Ubuntu. 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 I can't be all I can be unless you become all that you can be. So I'll tell you what, thanks for joining me on episode number 9, allowing me to talk a little bit about my mom, allowing me to talk about protein and smoothies, and also truth bombs. So to learn more about me, connect with me on social media. The best place is just to go to my website. Go to stangibsonspeaks.com. That's stangibsonspeaks.com. And from there, we can get you on this newsletter. We can make you one of the contacts. We can get you one of these 2 to 3 minute reads each and every week. So that's it for today, my friends. I'm out of here. Have a great week, and may you all live a rich and intentional life. Bye. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at stangibsonspeaks.com.